For centuries, the principles of power have remained a constant undercurrent in the affairs of humankind. While the language of leadership may evolve, the fundamental dynamics of influence and authority endure. Among those who have dissected these dynamics with unflinching clarity, Niccolò Machiavelli stands as a timeless observer. His insights, often deemed pragmatic and sometimes controversial, offer a stark understanding of how power is gained, maintained, and, crucially, eroded. His name has become synonymous with a certain type of political realism, yet his observations extend far beyond the courts of Renaissance princes. They apply to the corporate boardroom, the team project, and any arena where one individual is tasked with guiding the efforts of others. In the intricate dance of leadership, respect is not merely a desirable sentiment, it is a foundational pillar upon which authority rests. It is the currency of influence. When respect wanes, the leader's capacity to guide, to command, and to achieve their objectives diminishes. Machiavelli, in his astute observations of the political landscape, understood that disrespect, if left unchecked, acts as a corrosive force, weakening the very structure of power. It is like a slow-acting poison which, if not identified and neutralized, will inevitably lead to the collapse of the system it infects. This discourse is not about the fleeting emotions of popularity or the superficial gestures of deference. It delves into the tangible signs, the concrete behaviors that reveal a disregard for a leader's position and their directives. These are the subtle yet significant indicators that, if ignored, can lead to a gradual but certain decline in influence. They are the cracks in the foundation that a wise leader must see and repair before the entire structure becomes unstable. Machiavelli, though he did not explicitly list these as signs of disrespect, his writings implicitly warn against tolerating actions that undermine a leader's authority. Drawing upon his enduring wisdom, we will explore 5 critical behaviors that a discerning leader must recognize and address with unwavering resolve. To overlook these signs is to invite a weakening of your command and a challenge to your leadership itself. Understand them, acknowledge them, and act upon them. The preservation of your authority depends on it. Ignoring directives. The most fundamental assertion of leadership lies in the issuance of directives. A leader sets a course, outlines tasks, and expects these to be followed with diligence and precision. When these directives are consistently ignored, it is not merely a matter of inefficiency. It is a clear and unambiguous signal of disrespect. It is the most primal challenge to authority. To ignore a direct instruction is to implicitly state that the leader's priorities are not your own, that their judgment is not worthy of adherence. It suggests a belief that your own understanding or intentions supersede the leader's explicit command. This is a direct challenge to the hierarchical structure that underpins any form of organized authority. Consider a project manager who instructs a team to focus on securing a foundational client, only to find a key member has spent their week pursuing a smaller, more personally interesting lead. This is not just a deviation, it is a declaration that the team member's judgment is superior to the leader's strategic vision. Machiavelli understood the critical importance of order and discipline in maintaining power. In The Prince, he emphasizes the necessity for a ruler to be obeyed. When subordinates feel emboldened to disregard instructions without consequence, it breeds a culture of insubordination. This is not merely about a single instance of non-compliance. It is about the precedent it sets. If one directive can be ignored, what prevents others from meeting the same fate? The ripple effect is potent. Others see the boundary being crossed and feel licensed to test it themselves. The reasons for ignoring directives can vary. It might stem from incompetence, a genuine misunderstanding, or even passive-aggressive resistance. Sometimes it is arrogance, a belief that one knows better. In other cases, it is a deliberate test of the leader's resolve. Regardless of the underlying cause, the leader's response must be consistent and clear. To tolerate the repeated disregard of instructions is to tacitly condone it, signaling to others that such behavior carries no significant repercussions. Consider the implications within any organization. If a manager's instructions are routinely overlooked by their team, the manager's authority is undermined and the team's productivity suffers. If a general's commands are disregarded by their officers, the entire military operation is jeopardized. The principle remains the same across levels of leadership. The ability to issue and have directives followed is paramount. A leader must be discerning in addressing this sign of disrespect. A single instance might warrant a private discussion to clarify understanding or address any legitimate obstacles. However, a pattern of ignoring directives demands a more decisive response. This is not about being autocratic. It is about preserving the integrity of the leadership role itself. A firm but fair response might involve restating the directive, outlining the consequences of the initial failure to comply, and monitoring future actions closely. A weak response, ignoring it completely, invites repetition. An overly aggressive response can create fear, but also resentment, which is another poison. Machiavelli advises that a leader should strive to be both feared and loved, but when a choice must be made, it is better to be feared than loved if love does not ensure obedience. While outright fear is not the goal in most modern contexts, a clear understanding of consequences for failing to follow directives is essential. Allowing this form of disrespect to fester creates an environment where the leader's pronouncements carry little weight, effectively neutering their ability to lead. Address ignored directives promptly and firmly. The integrity of your command depends on it.
Leadership often requires the articulation of a unified vision and a consistent message. When an individual publicly contradicts a leader's stated position, it sends a powerful signal of disrespect, not only to the leader, but also to the entire group. This is not a debate, it is a performance designed to undermine. A public contradiction undermines the leader's authority in several critical ways. Firstly, it suggests a lack of agreement or support from within, potentially sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of others. If one person feels emboldened to publicly challenge the leader, others might question the validity of the leader's pronouncements as well. It is like questioning a ship's captain on the bridge during a storm in front of the crew. It creates panic and division when unity is most needed. Secondly, it disrupts the flow of communication and can derail important discussions. Instead of focusing on the matter at hand, attention shifts to the conflict between the leader and the individual offering the contradiction. This can lead to unproductive debates and a loss of momentum. The agenda is hijacked, and the leader is put on the defensive in a forum they're meant to be leading. Machiavelli understood the importance of projecting an image of strength and unity. Public dissent weakens this image and can be perceived as a sign of internal division. Enemies, or even potential rivals, may see such public contradictions as an opportunity to exploit perceived weaknesses within the leadership structure. They see blood in the water. It is important to distinguish between constructive private feedback and disruptive public contradiction. A loyal and respectful individual may raise concerns or offer alternative perspectives in a private setting, allowing for a more nuanced and confidential discussion. This is a sign of a healthy organization. public contradiction, however, is often driven by a desire to undermine the leader's position or to elevate one's own status at the leader's expense. It is an act of ambition cloaked as an act of conscience. A leader's response to public contradiction must be carefully considered. Ignoring it can be interpreted as weakness or an inability to defend one's position. However, reacting with excessive anger or vindictiveness can also be detrimental, potentially alienating others or creating unnecessary drama. Machiavelli advises prudence and the importance of maintaining one's reputation. A measured but firm response that reaffirms the leader's position while addressing the contradiction, perhaps by clarifying the rationale behind the decision or pointing out the flaws in the opposing argument, is often the most effective approach. The goal is to quell the public challenge without appearing insecure or tyrannical. One might say, "Thank you for that perspective. We considered that angle, but proceeded for these specific reasons which align with our broader strategy. We can discuss your alternative approach offline." This reclaims control of the narrative. Allowing public contradiction to go unchecked can erode the leader's perceived authority over time. It creates an environment where dissenting voices feel empowered to challenge openly, leading to a breakdown of order and a weakening of the leader's ability to command respect. A unified public front, even if internal disagreements exist, is crucial for maintaining a strong and effective leadership. Address public contradictions swiftly and strategically to preserve the integrity of your authority.
Number 2. Public contradiction. Leadership often requires the articulation of a unified vision and a consistent message. When an individual publicly contradicts a leader's stated position, it sends a powerful signal of disrespect, not only to the leader, but also to the entire group. This is not a debate, it is a performance designed to undermine. A public contradiction undermines the leader's authority in several critical ways. Firstly, it suggests a lack of agreement or support from within, potentially sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of others. If one person feels emboldened to publicly challenge the leader, others might question the validity of the leader's pronouncements as well. It is like questioning a ship's captain on the bridge during a storm in front of the crew. It creates panic and division when unity is most needed. Secondly, it disrupts the flow of communication and can derail important discussions. Instead of focusing on the matter at hand, attention shifts to the conflict between the leader and the individual offering the contradiction. This can lead to unproductive debates and a loss of momentum. The agenda is hijacked, and the leader is put on the defensive in a forum they are meant to be leading. Machiavelli understood the importance of projecting an image of strength and unity. Public dissent weakens this image and can be perceived as a sign of internal division. Enemies or even potential rivals may see such public contradictions as an opportunity to exploit perceived weaknesses within the leadership structure. They see blood in the water. It is important to distinguish between constructive private feedback and disruptive public contradiction. A loyal and respectful individual may raise concerns or offer alternative perspectives in a private setting, allowing for a more nuanced and confidential discussion. This is a sign of a healthy organization. Public contradiction, however, is often driven by a desire to undermine the leader's position or to elevate one's own status at the leader's expense. It is an act of ambition cloaked as an act of conscience. A leader's response to public contradiction must be carefully considered. Ignoring it can be interpreted as weakness or an inability to defend one's position. However, reacting with excessive anger or vindictiveness can also be detrimental, potentially alienating others or creating unnecessary drama. Machiavelli advises prudence and the importance of maintaining one's reputation, a measured but firm response that reaffirms the leader's position while addressing the contradiction, perhaps by clarifying the rationale behind the decision or pointing out the flaws in the opposing argument, is often the most effective approach. The goal is to quell the public challenge without appearing insecure or tyrannical. One might say, "Thank you for that perspective. We considered that angle, but proceeded for these specific reasons, which align with our broader strategy. We can discuss your alternative approach offline." This reclaims control of the narrative. Allowing public contradiction to go unchecked can erode the leader's perceived authority over time. It creates an environment where dissenting voices feel empowered to challenge openly, leading to a breakdown of order and a weakening of the leader's ability to command respect. A unified public front, even if internal disagreements exist, is crucial for maintaining a strong and effective leadership. Address public contradictions swiftly and strategically to preserve the integrity of your authority.
Number 3. Withholding information. Effective leadership relies on the flow of accurate and timely information. Leaders make decisions based on the data and insights they receive from their teams and advisors. When crucial information is deliberately withheld, it is a significant act of disrespect that can severely impede a leader's ability to govern effectively. This is a form of soft sabotage. Withholding information can manifest in various ways. It might involve failing to report critical developments, downplaying potential problems, or selectively sharing only information that supports a particular agenda. It is an act of curation designed to control. Regardless of the method, the intent is often to limit the leader's understanding or to steer them toward a specific course of action without their full knowledge. Machiavelli understood that a ruler surrounded by uninformed or misinformed advisors is vulnerable. He stressed the importance of having wise counsel, but also the need for the ruler to be able to discern the truth and not be easily manipulated. When information is withheld, it is a direct attempt to manipulate the leader's perception of reality. The leader is in effect being led by the person controlling the information. This form of disrespect can stem from various motivations. It might be driven by fear of repercussions for bad news, a desire to protect oneself or one's team, or even a deliberate attempt to sabotage the leader's plans. An accountant might see a worrying financial trend, but delay reporting it, hoping the leader will make a poor budget decision and appear incompetent. Whatever the underlying reason, the act of withholding crucial information demonstrates a lack of trust in the leader's judgment and an unwillingness to be fully transparent. A leader must cultivate an environment where open communication is valued and where individuals feel comfortable sharing both positive and negative information. However, when there is evidence of deliberate information withholding, it cannot be ignored. It erodes the foundation of trust upon which the leader's subordinate relationship should be built. The long-term consequence is that the leader is forced to become suspicious and micromanage, verifying every piece of data, which is inefficient and breeds further resentment. Addressing this sign of disrespect requires careful investigation and a clear articulation of expectations. It might involve establishing clear protocols for reporting information, fostering a culture of psychological safety where individuals feel comfortable raising concerns, and holding individuals accountable for failing to provide necessary details. Machiavelli advises a leader to be knowledgeable and to seek information from multiple sources. Relying solely on a limited circle of advisors can make a leader susceptible to manipulation through information control. By actively seeking diverse perspectives and verifying information, a leader can mitigate the risk of being misled. The deliberate withholding of information is not just an oversight, it is often a calculated act that undermines a leader's ability to make informed decisions and maintain control. By fostering open communication, establishing clear expectations, and addressing instances of information withholding decisively, a leader can safeguard their authority and ensure they have the necessary insights to govern effectively. Do not tolerate the subtle but potent disrespect of withheld information.
Number 4. Dismissing concerns. A fundamental aspect of leadership is the ability to identify potential problems and address concerns before they escalate. When a leader raises a legitimate concern and it is met with dismissal or trivialization, it is a clear indication of disrespect for their judgment and their role. It is an attack on their foresight. Dismissing a leader's concerns implies that their perspective is not valued, that their worries are unfounded, or that the issue at hand is not worthy of their attention. The person dismissing the concern is essentially saying, "Your perception of risk is flawed, mine is superior." This can be particularly damaging when the concerns relate to strategic risks, potential challenges, or the well-being of the organization or group. Machiavelli understood that a wise ruler listens to counsel and is aware of potential threats. To have one's concerns dismissed, especially by those who are meant to support the leader's objectives, suggests a lack of appreciation for the leader's responsibilities and insights. It can create a sense of isolation and undermine the leader's confidence in their own judgment. In some cases, it can be a form of professional gaslighting, intended to make the leader doubt their own valid instincts. The act of dismissal can take various forms. It might be overt, such as directly stating that the leader is overreacting or misunderstanding the situation. Or it can be more subtle, through nonverbal cues like an eye roll, a heavy sigh, or a patronizing tone that conveys disinterest or impatience. Regardless of how it is expressed, the underlying message is a lack of respect for the leader's viewpoint. A leader must foster an environment where concerns can be raised openly and respectfully. However, when dismissal becomes a pattern, it needs to be addressed directly. Allowing individuals to routinely belittle or ignore a leader's concerns creates a culture where the leader's input is not valued, and potential problems may be overlooked with serious consequences. It leads to organizational blindness, where real threats are ignored because the culture discourages raising them. Machiavelli advises that a leader should be surrounded by those who offer honest and constructive criticism, even if it is uncomfortable. Dismissing a leader's concerns is the antithesis of this. It shuts down dialogue and can lead to a leader being surrounded by individuals who are either unwilling or afraid to voice dissenting opinions or acknowledge potential problems. When a leader's concerns are consistently dismissed, it not only disrespects the individual, but also jeopardizes the effectiveness of the entire organization or group. By clearly communicating the importance of addressing concerns seriously, and by holding individuals accountable for dismissive behavior, a leader can ensure that potential issues are not ignored and that their judgment is respected. Do not tolerate the disrespect of having your legitimate concerns belittled or dismissed.
Number 5. Taking undue credit. Leadership often involves the initiation of ideas, the direction of efforts, and the ultimate responsibility for outcomes. When individuals within a leader's sphere attempt to take undue credit for successes that were largely driven by the leader's vision or efforts, it is a subtle but significant form of disrespect. It is a form of theft, stealing the political capital and authority that comes with achievement. Taking undue credit not only diminishes the leader's contributions, but also undermines their authority by suggesting that the success was primarily due to someone else's efforts. It can sow seeds of resentment within the team and create a perception that the leader is not the driving force behind achievements. For instance, a subordinate who executed a small part of a project may frame their contribution in a report as the linchpin of the entire success, subtly erasing the leader's strategic guidance and months of planning. Machiavelli understood the importance of a ruler being seen as the architect of their own success and the prosperity of their realm. When others attempt to usurp this perception by claiming credit that is not rightfully theirs, it challenges the leader's image of competence and authority. Reputation, for Machiavelli, was a tool of power. This behavior can be motivated by ambition, insecurity, or a desire to elevate one's own standing within the hierarchy. Regardless of the reason, allowing it to go unchallenged can create a precedent where the leader's role is minimized and others feel entitled to claim credit for their initiatives. It also has a corrosive effect on the team. When others see credit being misallocated, it demotivates them and encourages a culture of cynical self-promotion over collaborative success. A leader must be vigilant in recognizing and addressing instances of undue credit taking. This does not mean being petty or insecure about sharing praise, but it does require ensuring that contributions are accurately attributed and that the leader's pivotal role is acknowledged. It can be done with subtlety and grace. A leader might publicly state, "Yes, John's work on the final module was excellent and crucial. It was the final piece of the strategy we laid out 6 months ago, and I'm proud of how the entire team executed the vision." This acknowledges the individual while recentering the leader's strategic role. Machiavelli advises a leader to be aware of those around them and their motivations. Individuals who consistently seek to aggrandize themselves at the expense of the leader's reputation should be regarded with caution. By ensuring that credit is accurately attributed and by subtly but firmly correcting instances of undue credit taking, a leader reinforces their central role and maintains the perception of their authority and influence. Do not tolerate the disrespect of having your leadership undermined by those seeking to claim credit for your initiatives. Recap. The subtle signs of disrespect, if left unaddressed, can collectively erode the foundations of a leader's authority. Ignoring directives, public contradiction, withholding information, dismissing concerns, and taking undue credit are not merely isolated incidents. They are indicators of a deeper lack of respect that can ultimately undermine a leader's capacity to govern effectively. They are symptoms of a disease that, if untreated, will weaken the entire body. Machiavelli's enduring wisdom reminds us that power is not static. It requires constant vigilance and the willingness to act decisively when challenged. Recognizing and addressing these 5 signs of disrespect is not about personal ego or a desire for absolute control. It is about preserving the structural integrity and effectiveness of leadership itself. A leader has a duty to protect their authority as a shepherd protects their flock, not purely for their own sake, but for the sake of the collective enterprise. A leader who allows disrespect to take root risks a gradual but certain decline in their influence, ultimately hindering their ability to achieve their goals and maintain their position. Be observant, be resolute, and never accept the subtle but potent erosion of your authority.